This is the story of Cocoa and Ice by Diana Applebaum. Pictures by Holly Mead. Cocoa Ice by Diana Applebaum. Pictures by Holly Mead. Chocolate comes from a faraway island where birds have pink feathers, leaves grow bigger than I am tall, and it is always summer. Children who live on the island have never had to wear boots or clean ashes from the stoves because winter never comes. Best of all, on the island of always summer, chocolate grows on trees. The island where chocolate grows on trees is called Santo Domingo, and I know all about it because Uncle Jacob sails there on a trading schooner, which means ship. Once he brought home a seashell from his mantel shelf. Inside it, it is pink and smoother than anything in the whole world. And if you hold it to your ear, it always whispers, "Summer, summer, summer." Cocoa. Early in the morning is the best time to climb a tree because the sun has not yet had time to bake the earth until it is hot and steamy like a roasted plantain. If you wait until afternoon, rain will make the trees too slippery to climb. But if you get up while the birds are looking for their breakfast and sit absolutely still, one may come so close that you can feel its feathers ruffle the air. Still, the main reason why the morning is the best time to climb to the top of a very tall tree is that if a schooner comes into the bay, you will be the first to see it. We have every kind of tree around our house: coconut, papaya, mango, orange, banana, plantain, breadfruit, guava, and a special kind called cacao. Trees that grow chocolate. Cacao trees grow only in the shade, so Papa plants young cacaos under tall banana trees that shade the growing cacao. Little pink cacao flowers grow right on the trunk. Green cacao pods grow side by side with the flowers, and next to them grow ripe and yellow pods, ready to be picked. A cacao tree is always blooming, always ripening, and always ready to harvest. Papa splits the ripe cacao pods open with his machete and scoops out white pulp and pale beans. We spread the slippery beans on a sticky sweet pulp on a carpet of banana leaves, and then we cover everything with more banana leaves. I like to eat the sweet cacao pulp while we work, but I don't chew the beans. Once I bit a fresh cocoa bean and it was so bitter that it set my teeth on edge. Papa laughed and said, "Don't be so impatient, little one. Wait for the sun to make it into chocolate." And it does. After a few hot days under the banana leaves, the pale, bitter cocoa beans begin to change color. We pick beans out of the old, smelly pulp and spread them to dry in the sun, turning them until they become a dark, beautiful brown. Today the cocoa beans are drying. There is no work to do in the garden, and Papa says we are going conching. Mama wraps cassava bread in banana leaves and packs it in our basket with guavas for our lunch. It's hot paddling down the River San Juan, and we have a long way to go because after the river reaches the sea, we must paddle along the beach until we reach the cove sheltered from ocean waves. I'm tired and thirsty when we finally pull the canoe out to the beach. So, Papa opens coconuts and we drink their sweet milk. Now it's time to hunt for conches. I push my basket into the water and wade out into the slippery leaves of turtle grass, brush against my legs. Conches are hiding in the turtle grass, swimming slowly. I push the grass aside and conches look like mossy rocks. when they stand still, but I'll catch one if it hops. Something moves under the grass and I dive for it, surfacing with the conch and looking for Papa to show him my catch. But as I reach to put my prize in the basket, a big red claw reaches for me. I squeal, ow, and drop the fierce shell. It's only a hermit crab, but I want conches, not hermit crabs. Mama lets me have the shells after she steams the conches and picks the meat out for chowder. I line them up on a sunny clearing where we dry the cocoa beans. After they've sat in the sun for a few days, I can brush off the sea moss that made the shells look like dull green rocks in the turtle grass and see them glisten in the sunshine. Inside they are pink like cacao flowers, but smooth and shiny even after they are dry. Our beans are not chocolate yet. They're only cocoa beans, and we must turn them every day until they are dry. Mama roasts them over a hot fire until they begin to smell like chocolate. Then she lets me put them in the mortar and crush them. The best thing about being allowed to pound the cocoa beans is the chocolate smell that curls up to your nose. There's the conch shell. We put the crushed cocoa beans into a chocolate pot while Mama boils the water and pours it over the beans and adds sugar. I set out the cups. I think hot chocolate is the most wonderful drink in the whole world, unless there is an ice schooner in the bay. When a schooner comes, schooner means ship, Papa drags his canoe to the river. It took a long time to hollow out that canoe from a log, and Papa is very careful never to drag it over a rock. We pile up sacks of dried cocoa beans into the canoe. Along with a heap of coconuts and bananas, I climb in between two bunches of bananas. As big as I am, I settle my best conch shell between my feet, and we're on our way. Papa carries me up the side of the ship on a rope, and one of our sailors leans down to lift me over the rail. Other families have come, and Papa must wait his turn to trade with the captain. Clutching my conch shell, I search the crowd for a sailor named Jacob, who once showed me pictures of his faraway country. He spots me first and says hello with a big smile. I showed Jacob my beautiful conch shell, and let him feel how smooth and pink it is inside. He shows me a picture of a girl just my age with a ribbon in her hair. Then he pulls a small square bag with stitching on it from his pocket. Jacob holds the bag to his face, sniffs it, and smiles. I sniff it too. It doesn't smell like chocolate or jasmine or papaya or anything in the world. It smells strange and wonderful, and now it's mine. Papa trades too. I know he must bargain for a bolt of cloth, but I hop on with pleasure when I see what else Papa has traded for. Cocoa beans for ice! The sailors lower a block of ice into our canoe, and Papa covers it with a banana leaf. And then they hand me over the rail, and when I am settled, one of them passes down the new cloth. I put it carefully into a dry basket. Holding the bag with wonderful smells safely in my lap, I wave goodbye to Jacob, the marinero. When we get home, Mama scoops the sweet white pulp from ripe cacao pod and beats it into smooth and soft. Then she shaves the ice, stirs it into the cacao pulp, and pours it into cups for us to drink. Cocoa ice is white and sweet and so cold, I think it must be magic. It slides down my throat and makes me shiver to think of children living in such an icy place. Ice schooners come from a land where the water is so hard that people walk on it, like a river, right on the river. This place is where water turns into ice, and it's called Maine. And I know all about it because the sailor Jacob showed me pictures. In Maine, the people build cooking fires inside their houses, and the trees don't have any leaves. And now I know another thing about Maine. I know that it has a wonderful smell. I sniff my balsam bag and try to imagine a land where children walk on rivers of ice. Ice. Winter grips Maine hard. The days are short, bright, and so cold that sometimes nothing moves. Not the wind, not the birds, not even the river. But our kitchen is warm. Mama bakes apple pies in the big stove, and I practice my stitching by making a balsam pillow with fir needles. Papa and Uncle Jacob work for the ice company. If they can fill the big ice houses before the spring breakup, Uncle Jacob's schooner and other ships can carry pieces of Maine winter to sell in hot countries far away. That's why we worry about snow. Papa and Uncle Jacob and I stand out on the riverbank, stomping our boots, watching snow fall on the ice and worrying. "Figure it'll hold?" Papa asks, looking over the thin sheet of ice. Uncle Jacob doesn't answer. They both know that air in the pockets of a million snowflakes will keep the river from freezing, and unless the river freezes, there will be no ice to sell. But this ice is new and too thin to scrape. It has to be tapped, if it will hold the weight of a man. We watch Uncle Jacob slide a wide plank onto the snowy surface and step out onto the river. It holds. Soon a line of men follows Uncle Jacob. They inch forward, tapping holes on the ice with needles and bars and mallets. River water seeps up through the holes, turning powdered snow into soggy slurry. If the weather stays cold, the ice will freeze, or the icy water will freeze solid, thick enough to support a house. Horses are important once the ice is thick enough to scrape. After every snowstorm, Papa and Uncle Jacob harness our teams to heavy snow scrapers and clean the snow off the river so the ice can freeze thick and clear. From Augusta all the way to Merry Meeting Bay, men and teams scrape snow to help the river freeze. One morning when the sky is clear and there's no snow to scrape, Papa takes the wheels off the wagon box and puts the runners on. Mama bundles us in extra hats and mittens and tucks us into a pile of hay under a heavy quilt. Riding in a wagon on runners is like flying. We fly upriver, clear to the falls. It is so cold that by morning the river has frozen more than a foot thick. Time to fill the ice houses. I watch the ice boss rule a straight line across the river as though he were getting ready for a giant arithmetic lesson. Papa follows that line with the big ice cutter. The cutter's steel teeth slice through the solid ice, as easy as a knife slicing through Mama's apple pie. But Papa is careful not to cut through to the water. The ice has to stay solid enough to walk on until the whole surface has been grooved and cut into blocks. Back and forth they go, grooving and cutting until the river looks like a giant checkerboard. Only all the squares are white. 50 men are at work on the river today, grooving and cutting and sawing and barring off blocks of ice, floating them across the open water, pushing them into a place in the elevator's chain that lifts them toward the open door of the great ice house. The upper doors are higher than the roof of a church, and the ice boss aims to fill it to the rafters before breakup. I watch until I get so cold I have to run into the kitchen. Mama makes hot chocolate to warm me up. Ice isn't worth anything unless you can get it all the way to summer without melting. That's why ice house walls are built double, 2 walls with wide spaces between filled with sawdust to keep the cold in. That's why even ice house doors are built double and filled with sawdust to keep summer out. And why we insulate the ice with a blanket of sweet meadow hay When Uncle Jacob cuts the bales open, the green smell of summer meadows spills from the hay and fills the loft. The men fill their great building one room at a time, lining blocks of ice up in perfect rows. Straight lines of ice that reach from wall to wall and rise in towers until they're almost touching the roof. After the ice house is full, the boss closes the doors and waits for the river to break up. But no matter how cold winter is, summer always comes. New grass in the pasture feels soft on my toes, and schooners come back up the Kennebec. Sailors fill the holds with ice, pouring a thick layer of sawdust all around as they stack it, and covering the sawdust with hay from our meadows. Mama says ice from our river goes halfway around the world in ships that come home filled with silk and cashmere and ginger and tea. But the most important ship of all is the ice schooner Uncle Jacob is sailing on today, bound for Santo Domingo to bring home chocolate. I give Uncle Jacob the sweet-smelling balsam pillow I made to carry with him to the island of always summer, and wave until his schooner disappears around the bend. I can't stop crying. Mama says, I think this would be a good day to make ice cream. Opening the ice house door in summer is like stepping into the castle where winter fell asleep. It's dark and cold, and the men working wear ice hats and gloves and woolen leggings even on the hottest summer day. They're busy moving ice into the holds of ships lined up at the wharf, but not too busy to set a frozen chunk of winter ice onto our wagon. Mama measures cream and sugar into the can of the ice cream freezer while I carefully pour in the cocoa. Papa chips the ice and packs it around the can with layers of salt. Then I start to turn the crank. It turns easily at first, gentle strokes swirling the chocolate, cream, and sugar round and round in the dasher. But as the cream begins to freeze, my arm grows tired and the crank turns slower and slower until I can't turn it at all. Then Mama takes over and cranks until the ice cream is so hard that the dasher won't turn another inch. When that happens, Mama sets the can on ice to keep it until dinner, and she gives me the dasher to lick. As I sit on the kitchen step licking chocolate from the ice-cold dasher, I close my eyes and imagine the island of always summer, where the pink seashells line the beaches and the chocolate comes from the trees. You can read about cocoa and ice at your home too. I hope you enjoyed learning about what different children look like, where, live, and eat in different places in the world. Mrs. Keena got this shell from the ocean too. And when they're telling you about how sweet and beautiful and pink inside a shell is, you'll see what it looks like from my shell from the ocean. The outside is rough and old looking. But look deep inside. Do you see how soft and smooth it is from an animal living in there once under the water? That's the same from her. Do you think if I listen, I will hear summer?